The hospital walls shook with silence as his hand struck her face. Her body crumpled, one arm clutching her unborn child. Gasps filled the ward, but no one moved. No one spoke, and then the door opened. Her father stepped in. His eyes burned with fire, his voice carrying the weight of generations. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was a reckoning. The world would remember what happened next. This is the story of a father who did the unbelievable. Welcome, story lovers, from where are you watching? Drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travel asterisk. It was supposed to be one of the happiest days of her life. Layla, a young Black woman glowing with the joy of motherhood, walked into the hospital with her heart brimming with hope. She was 7 months pregnant, carefully cradling the child she had dreamed of for years. For her, the hospital was meant to be a place of safety, a place where life would be celebrated. Yet behind the polished walls and fluorescent lights, storm was silently brewing. Her husband, Daniel, came from wealth and power. A white man raised in privilege, he was admired by many as a charismatic businessman. Yet behind closed doors, he treated Layla not as his equal, but as a burden. Layla had endured his arrogance, his subtle insults, the whispered reminders of her race, all in silence because she wanted her child to grow up with both parents. She hoped he would change. She prayed love would soften him. But that morning, as she sat in the waiting room clutching her ultrasound report, the whispers grew louder in her mind. She remembered how he scoffed at her darker skin, how he accused her of tainting his legacy with a Black child, words sharp enough to wound her very soul. She brushed away the thoughts, trying to focus on the baby's heartbeat. Unbeknownst to her, Daniel's temper was about to erupt in the most humiliating and dangerous way possible inside, the very place meant to protect her. Layla had no idea that within hours, she would face her greatest trial, one that would test her strength as a mother, as a woman, and as a daughter. And in the shadows, her father, a man with a past of resilience, was already preparing for the unthinkable. The day unfolded with uneasy silence. Nurses moved briskly, doctors spoke softly, yet Layla's mind couldn't settle. Daniel had arrived late, his face tight with irritation, as if being by her side was an inconvenience. He ignored the excitement of hearing the baby's heartbeat and instead focused on his phone, his whispers sharp and mocking. When the doctor handed them the ultrasound image, Layla's heart swelled, but Daniel's sneer cut through it. He muttered something cruel about the baby inheriting her features. The sting was unbearable. She turned away, tears threatening to spill. But she forced herself to stay strong for the child growing inside her. By noon, his agitation had grown worse. Layla, exhausted, asked for water. Instead of helping, he snapped, his voice rising loud enough for others to hear. The room went still. Nurses exchanged worried glances, but no one dared to interfere. They had seen this before. Wealthy men whose power silenced justice. Then it happened. His anger boiled over into violence. Daniel struck her right there in the hospital. The sound of the slap echoed like a gunshot. Layla's body trembled, her hands instinctively wrapping around her stomach, protecting her child. Gasps rippled through the ward, yet silence quickly followed. People looked away, afraid of the man's influence, afraid of what speaking out could cost them. Layla's world spun. Her body ached, her mind screamed. But her heart clung to one thought. The baby must survive. Daniel towered over her, his face twisted with hatred, as though punishing her for existing. And in that moment, something inside Layla shifted. Fear began to transform into resolve. But she wasn't alone. Unknown to Daniel, Layla's father had been pacing the hospital corridors. He had always distrusted Daniel, had warned her about marrying into privilege that saw her as inferior. He had promised to protect her, even if it meant standing against men like Daniel. The nurses whispered as they watched the scene unfold. Layla's father was near, and when he appeared, carrying with him the strength of generations who had survived cruelty, what followed was nothing short of unbelievable. The hospital had witnessed injustice before, but it had never seen the kind of justice her father was about to deliver. The moment her father, James, walked into that hospital room, The air shifted. His presence was commanding, a storm wrapped in silence. His eyes fell on his daughter's swollen face, on the trembling hand shielding her unborn child, and then on the man who dared to hurt her. Daniel sneered, unbothered, confident his wealth would shield him. He opened his mouth to speak, but before a word could escape, James acted. Decades of suppressed fury, of watching his people silenced, of seeing his daughter suffer in silence, erupted in one unstoppable force. James lunged forward, his hands gripping Daniel with a strength that belied his age. The nurses gasped, unsure whether to intervene. This wasn't just a father defending his daughter. It was a man unleashing the weight of history itself. The sterile walls of the hospital trembled with the intensity of that moment. Daniel, for the first time, looked afraid. He struggled, cursed, threatened to destroy James' life with lawsuits and power. But James's voice cut through the chaos like thunder. A voice filled with rage, pain, and love for his daughter. Security rushed in. Alarms blared, but the sight was unforgettable. An arrogant man brought low, and a father's love rising higher than fear. For Layla, it was a moment of clarity. The man she had hoped would protect her had turned into her greatest threat. And the man who had always stood by her father was willing to risk everything to shield her and her unborn child. The climax was not just the strike of a hand or the grip of anger, it was the collision of cruelty and courage, injustice and justice. And when the dust settled, nothing would ever be the same, dear audience. If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to give it a like. It really helps. The aftermath was chaos, doctors rushing to check Layla and her unborn child, security escorting Daniel away, whispers spreading like wildfire through the hospital. For once, silence had broken. People had seen what wealth and privilege tried to hide. They could not unsee it. Daniel's threats of power and lawsuits carried little weight now. Police arrived, and with Layla's father's testimony, the truth began to unravel. The hospital staff, inspired by James's courage, finally spoke up. Witnesses came forward, unwilling to let the cycle of silence continue. For Layla, the bruises on her skin would heal, but the scars on her heart would remain. Yet she also felt something stronger than pain. She felt a renewed sense of dignity. Her father's actions reminded her she was not weak, not voiceless, and not alone. This story wasn't just about a hospital fight. It was about generations of women silenced by abuse, of Black families undermined by power, and of the moment when silence finally broke, as Layla held her ultrasound picture again. Tears ran down her face, not from fear, but from hope. She knew her child would one day hear this story. And when that day came, she would say, "You were born from resilience. You are the proof that love is stronger than hate." The question that lingers for us all is this: how many more Laylas must suffer before society truly changes? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and new videos.